Imagine being completely broke, just
Yeah.
totally stressed out, and surviving on absolute scraps.
Right.
And then literally begging someone to let you give away your very last dollar.
I mean, mathematically, that makes zero sense.
Exactly, 0 cents. Psychologically, it completely goes against every survival instinct we have. But today, we are looking at an ancient letter that, well, it completely flips human economics on its head.
It really does.
Welcome to our deep dive. And, as we get started today, I just want to take a quick second to say, may God truly bless your day today, and may God bless your entire week ahead, bringing you peace, clarity, and purpose in whatever you are navigating right now.
That is such a great frame of mind to carry into this topic, honestly.
Yeah.
Because we are heading into territory that usually makes people squirm a bit.
Oh, absolutely. We are talking about money, wealth, generosity, and, our deep-seated anxieties about losing what we have.
Yeah, nobody likes that conversation.
No, they really don't. But we are not looking at a standard financial ledger today. Our mission is to unpack this fascinating piece of history from the first century, specifically the 8th chapter of 2 Corinthians.
Right.
And we're using insights gathered from some incredible historical scholarship, pulling from the Holman and NAA frameworks to understand this very specific, very massive international relief fund.
Yeah, and to really grasp the sheer scale of what is happening here, we have to rebuild the ancient Mediterranean world in our minds.
Okay, set the scene for us.
So the Apostle Paul is coordinating a massive collection across multiple regions. Because the Christian communities back in Jerusalem are suffering from a severe famine and just extreme poverty.
Oh, wow. So it's a real crisis.
A total economic crisis. And Paul is trying to rally the newer churches in Greece and Asia Minor to send financial aid.
So he is basically acting as a first century NGO director.
Pretty much, yeah. And he's writing this letter to the church in Corinth, which was a booming, upwardly mobile city.
Right, lots of wealth there.
But to motivate them, he doesn't point to a wealthy philanthropist. He doesn't, hold up a billionaire who just gave away half their fortune.
No, he points to the churches in the region of Macedonia, places like Philippi, Thessalonica, and Berea.
And that is the brilliance of Paul's rhetorical strategy. Because Macedonia at this time was not experiencing an economic boom.
Not at all.
No, the region had been heavily taxed by Rome, completely stripped of its natural resources, and ravaged by previous civil wars.
So they were hurting.
Exactly. When the historical record describes the Macedonians as experiencing deep poverty and much trial or tribulation, I mean, we were talking about day laborers surviving hand to mouth.
Man, to put that into a modern perspective for everyone listening, imagine a college student working 2 part-time jobs just to barely pay rent.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
They're surviving on instant ramen, they have finals stressing them out, their car just broke down, and their bank account is totally overdrawn.
Right, just pure stress.
That is their tribulation. But then they hear about a friend who needs a medical procedure, and they just empty out their jar of loose change on their dresser to help, not reluctantly, but eagerly.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. Because the language used in the original Greek is so intense here. Out of this severe ordeal and their extreme rock-bottom poverty, they somehow overflowed in a wealth of generosity.
Wait, let's stop right there. Because survival mode triggers self-preservation, not generosity.
Usually, yes.
When you are scraping the bottom of the barrel, your instinct is to hoard whatever calories or coins you have left just to make it to tomorrow.
Absolutely.
So how did they bypass that basic human instinct?
Well, they bypassed it by entirely redefining ownership. The historical context here is that the Macedonians didn't just give what they could spare out of their budget. They gave well beyond their ability.
Wow.
And they did it entirely voluntarily. I mean, they were actually begging Paul for the privilege of sharing in this service.
Wait, really? Begging?
Yes. They wanted in on this relief effort so badly that Paul essentially had to be convinced to take their money.
Begging to give away money that they desperately needed to survive, that is just wild.
It is wild. And the mechanism behind this is found right in the middle of the historical account. The Macedonians didn't just hand over physical coins. First, they gave themselves to the Lord. Okay.
So this wasn't just a financial transaction for them.
No, not at all.
It was like a total surrender of their identity.
That is the core of it.
Right.
When a person completely surrenders their identity and life to God, they no longer view their wallet, their time, or their energy as strictly their own property.
Right. It belongs to someone else now.
Exactly. Giving transforms from a burdensome tax you have to pay into an act of worship. It becomes an outpouring of grace.
I love that.
Yeah, and actually the very same Greek word for grace charis that is used to describe the unmerited favor of salvation, is the exact word used here to describe the act of giving money.
That completely changes the framing. It's not about, how much is in the bank account. It's about who actually owns the bank account.
Yes, precisely.
But Paul isn't just telling this story because it's heartwarming, right? He's using the staggering example of Macedonian sacrifice to hold up a mirror to the people he's actually writing to.
Right, the Corinthians.
Yeah, he is subtly yet very firmly challenging the Corinthians.
Because the contrast between Macedonia and Corinth could not be sharper. I mean, Corinth was situated on a vital trade route.
Lots of money flowing through there.
Oh, tons. It is the ancient equivalent of New York mixed with Las Vegas. There was massive commerce, new money, and immense affluence.
So they were not struggling.
No. And the Corinthians had actually started gathering this collection for Jerusalem a whole year prior. They were the ones who originally had the idea to do it.
But they totally stalled out, like the enthusiasm just completely evaporated.
Yeah, they hit a wall. Historical evidence suggests this stalling was likely tied to a severe relational conflict between the Corinthian church and Paul himself.
Oh, interesting. So there was drama.
A lot of drama. There had been a falling out, trust was fractured, and the offering basket just sat there collecting dust for a year.
Now, if I am Paul, and I know these people have money, and they've been dragging their feet for a year, I am pulling the guilt card.
Oh, 100%.
Right. I'm saying, look at the starving people in Jerusalem. Look at your giant villas in Corinth. Open your purses and finish what you started.
Which is what most people would do.
But he refuses to do that.
He does, because he knows that forced generosity is just coercion. It just breeds resentment. Paul explicitly states he is not commanding them.
So what does he do instead?
Well, instead of leveraging guilt, he leverages their existing identity. He acknowledges that the Corinthians abound in everything else.
Oh, he builds them up.
Exactly. They are famous for their strong faith, their eloquent speech, their deep theological knowledge, and their spiritual passion.
So he pivots. He essentially says, look, you are crushing it in all these high-level intellectual, spiritual areas. Now let's see you apply that exact same excellence to this specific grace of giving.
Yes.
Wow.
He is exposing a disconnect. Because spiritual maturity isn't just about having great theology or, powerful worship gatherings.
Right.
If your profound spiritual knowledge doesn't translate into tangible physical generosity toward people who are literally starving, well, your foundation is cracked.
Yeah, you can't claim to have a PhD in grace and then aggressively hoard all your resources.
Exactly.
But Paul doesn't just rely on peer pressure from the poor Macedonians. He elevates the entire conversation by bringing in the ultimate standard.
Right. He moves from human examples to the divine blueprint. He reminds the Corinthians of the grace of Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for their sakes he became poor, so that they, through his poverty, might become rich.
Now, if you are listening to this right now and thinking, sure, Jesus gave up cosmic riches in heaven, but how does that help me pay my mortgage or deal with my budget?
Right, it feels a bit disconnected from daily life.
Exactly. How do we bridge that theological gap into practical reality?
We bridge it by looking at the pattern of downward mobility.
Yeah.
So, being rich refers to Christ's pre-existent state, cosmic abundance holding the universe together.
Okay.
And then becoming poor points directly to the incarnation, stepping into human history, taking on absolute human frailty, suffering, and eventually the cross.
He voluntarily traded ultimate, infinite resources for ultimate poverty.
Exactly. And the purpose of that massive downward mobility was so that humanity could become rich in salvation, rich in reconciliation with God.
So Paul is setting up a baseline paradigm for human behavior here.
He is. If the very heart of the universe is a God who impoverishes himself to enrich others, then the followers of that God must reflect that same character.
Wow.
Generosity isn't just like an extracurricular activity for a Christian. It is the core family resemblance.
That is a heavy, heavy challenge. You've got the destitute Macedonians inspiring you from below and Christ inspiring you from above.
Leaves you with no excuses.
Seriously. But, my modern brain hears this and immediately starts flashing warning signs.
How so?
Well, if I'm sitting in Corinth listening to this letter being read out loud, I'm getting pretty nervous. Like, is Paul asking me to empty my life savings right now?
Right.
Is the goal for the Corinthians to bankrupt themselves so the believers in Jerusalem can live comfortably?
That fear of overextension, that anxiety of scarcity, it is a deeply human reaction. And Paul anticipates it immediately.
Oh, he does?
Yes. He addresses that fear head-on, assuring them that the goal is not to relieve others by putting a crushing burden on the Corinthians. He is not aiming for a role reversal. where Corinth becomes the new charity case tomorrow.
Okay, good. So what is the stated goal then?
The stated goal is equality.
Equality. Okay, now I want to ground this in a practical analogy because equality can mean a lot of different things to different people.
Definitely.
So think of a massive neighborhood potluck dinner.
Okay, I'm with you.
You have some people who bring a giant triple-layered lasagna, and you have others who maybe couldn't afford to bring anything, or maybe they just brought a single half-empty bag of chips.
A very tragic bag of chips.
Exactly, just crumbs, really. Now, the goal of the potluck is not to force the lasagna maker to surrender all their food and sit in the corner starving, while the chip bringer hoards the whole lasagna to themselves.
Right, that would just be reversing the inequality and creating a new victim.
Exactly. The goal of the potluck is that everyone puts their resources on the common table, everybody eats, and everyone goes home satisfied. The extreme abundance of the lasagna actively steps in to cover the extreme lack of the chips.
I love that.
Yep.
That illustrates the Greek concept of isos perfectly, which translates to equity or fairness.
Okay.
Paul is not advocating for a rigid, absolute communism where everyone's net worth is leveled down to the exact same penny.
Right.
He is advocating for a fluid, active sharing within the community where extreme surplus flows to where there is an extreme deficit.
And to drive this home, he leans on an incredible piece of ancient history.
He does. He references the story of the Israelites gathering manna in the wilderness from the book of Exodus.
Oh, right.
In that ancient account, God provided bread from heaven every morning. But there was a miraculous economic rule built into the gathering process.
Which was?
He who gathered much had nothing left over, and he who gathered little had no lack.
Because the system was explicitly rigged against hoarding. Like, if you tried to stash extra manna away in your tent to build up a massive manna savings account for yourself, the story says it would rot and fill with worms by the next morning.
Right. God's economy in the wilderness was intentionally designed for daily dependence on him and communal equity with each other.
It forced them to trust.
Exactly. And the logic Paul is using is that just as God ensured a distribution of manna so nobody starved and nobody hoarded, well, believers are called to voluntarily share their financial resources today.
Meaning the abundance you have right now isn't meant to be locked away in a vault while your neighbor goes hungry?
Because seasons change. Today, Corinth has a booming economy, and Jerusalem is facing a famine. But 10 years from now, a trade route might shift. Corinth might face a depression, and Jerusalem might be thriving.
So this mutual sharing creates a permanent safety net of grace.
Exactly.
And this is a massive, but this raises a huge logistical red flag for me.
Okay, what is it?
We're talking about collecting a massive amount of physical cash.
Oh, yeah.
Paul is organizing this offering from Macedonia, from Corinth, probably from Galatia, and he's going to transport this fortune across the ancient Mediterranean all the way to Jerusalem.
Right.
Ancient money wasn't a wire transfer. It was physical weight. Gold, silver, copper.
It would have been heavy, bulky, and incredibly obvious to anyone watching.
Yeah. Carrying a fortune on ancient roads meant dealing with bandits, corrupt Roman officials, and, shipwrecks.
The physical danger was massive.
But beyond the physical danger of a heist, this is a recipe for a massive public relations disaster.
Oh, for sure.
Whenever one person, especially a charismatic leader, handles a giant pile of other people's money, rumors start flying. Accusations of embezzlement, fraud, skimming off the top. How on earth did Paul protect himself from that?
Well, this is one of the most practical and brilliant administrative strategies in the ancient world. Paul was hyper-aware of the optics. He absolutely refused to handle these funds alone.
Smart man.
He builds an ironclad accountability team.
So he forms an ancient audit committee.
Basically, yes. He sends a man named Titus, who was deeply respected and trusted by the Corinthians, to personally supervise the collection. But Titus doesn't travel alone.
Who else goes?
Hal sends 2 other brothers with him.
And the historical accounts don't name them, but they describe them as highly regarded messengers of the churches, right?
Yes. Some scholars actually think one of them might have been Luke, the author of the gospel.
Oh, wow, that's fascinating.
But the crucial detail here is that these men were chosen and appointed by the churches themselves. They weren't just handpicked by Paul as his personal buddies.
But why go to all that trouble and expense? Why send a 3-man delegation across the sea just to pick up a donation? I mean, it feels almost paranoid.
It's not paranoia. It's a masterclass in integrity.
Yeah.
Paul operates on a dual standard here. He explicitly states that they are taking pains to do what is right, not only in the eyes of the Lord, but also in the eyes of man.
Man, that distinction is incredibly relevant today.
It really is.
Because when leaders get caught in financial gray areas, you constantly hear the defense, well, God knows my heart. God knows I had pure intentions.
Right. But Paul is arguing that your internal intentions are completely insufficient when you are managing communal resources.
Exactly. If you are running a modern nonprofit, or managing a corporate expense account, or handling the finances of a local community group, having good intentions just doesn't protect the organization from suspicion.
No, you need transparency.
You need independent audits. You need multiple signatories on the bank account. You need trusted, independent people reviewing the books so that there is proof of integrity that the public can clearly see and verify.
By having this delegation of men approved by the churches, Paul guarantees a public check and balance on the offering. It protects the physical funds from thieves on the road, because there is safety in numbers, but far more importantly,
It protects the reputation.
yes, it protects the entire ministry from any accusation of financial mishandling. It completely removes even the shadow of a doubt.
It's just phenomenal leadership wisdom. Wow, we've covered a massive amount of ground here today.
We really have.
We started with the shocking, paradoxical generosity of the impoverished Macedonians, people who gave out of their own severe lack because they had surrendered themselves entirely to God first.
Right, and we saw how Paul used that to lovingly but firmly challenge the wealthy, stalled-out Corinthians, urging them to match their high-level spiritual knowledge with tangible financial consistency.
And then we explored the ultimate standard, Christ, who gave up his cosmic riches to enrich humanity. We looked at the manna principle, where the goal isn't bankrupting anyone, but creating a community where extreme abundance cures extreme lack.
Just like the ultimate potluck.
Exactly. And we finished with the timeless necessity of absolute financial transparency, doing what is right before God and proving it before a watching world.
It completely dismantles how we normally view wealth and charity. It's not a mathematical transaction, it's an ecosystem of grace.
It really is. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what is a final thought we can walk away with today?
Well, the most compelling thought circles right back to the Macedonians. The only reason they were able to give so radically was because they gave themselves to God first.
Right, that first step.
Everything flowed from that initial surrender of their identity. So the question it leaves us with is this. If a complete stranger were to sit down today and audit your bank statement, and then audit the calendar on your phone, what would the evidence say you have given yourself to?
Wow. If my calendar and my debit card were put on trial, what would they prove I've surrendered my life to? That is a brilliant and honestly slightly terrifying thought to chew on as we go about our week.
It definitely makes you stop and think.
It really does. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today, and thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. As we close out, just as we began, I want to sincerely say, may God bless all of you listeners, keeping you safe and guiding your steps. We will catch you next time.